Hey everyone, looks like we're live. That's cool. Yeah, welcome to the first hobby stream for All About the Geek. This is planned to be a regular every 2 week sort of dealio, where I'm gonna do some hobbying, and occasionally you'll see me looking off screen because that's where I'm kind of monitoring the stream. And wow, this is totally in the way. Let's just a little bit less. So yes, that's the camera arm that's giving you the above view there. I can see my chats kind of there. Let's not try to put more stuff in the way. My goal is to see my chat. I'm just going to grab my mouse and resize some things here. Where is... Oh, there's my cursor. I want this bigger. This can be smaller. I can't make that any bigger right now. There's a line. There we go. It's a little bit bigger. All right, let's get rid of this. I won't worry about the fact that there is... Oh, except there is like right there. So yeah. So the plan is to get my arse back into the hobbying that I have loved for many years. And part of the reason I started this channel about a year ago now was to do that. So tonight, to facilitate that, I'm going to spend some time kind of recreating old school paint nights. I think it's old school. So this is a thing. I used to go to my favorite local gaming store regularly and attend paint night, where we would work on models and whatnot. Now, in the time of the COVIDs, that's not something we can really do. And worse yet for me and my friends, our FLGS burned down Easter weekend. So I'm going to, kind of in the spirit of that, and to honor Warcraft games, do this paint night. So yeah, every other Wednesday, 8 o'clock, join me here and we'll hang out and do some painting, hobbying, and whatnot. So I've got my tools. I've got my glue of choice, which is the Tamiya cement with the little brush doodad in there. And my goal is to get the Space Hulk. That's my first project is going to be the Space Hulk box set. I talked about it a little bit on stream and whatnot, and on my 2021 video, which you can check out. But I will try to monitor chat. I haven't figured out the best way to do that. So once I suss that out, I will definitely be better about it. But for now, we've got the face cam. I'll take a look there once in a while. I've got my phone here so I can monitor. Well, I can monitor Twitch chat. So if I actually go to the YouTubes here, I can monitor the YouTube chat there. But yeah, I'll have to figure out something better for down the road. Anyway, let's get into it. So my first goal is to assemble the Terminators. That's going to be my first part of the project. So there's a slight chance, because I am really beat right now, that I may not actually get all of the Tyranids assembled tonight as well. But I'm going to get this group, the Blood Angels, done tonight for sure. And some of the Tyranids, and then when we come back in 2 weeks, ideally I'll have these primed, and we'll talk a little bit about my process for how I'm going to go about painting them. All right, so when I am assembling miniatures, I usually I'll do one miniature at a time. If I'm, especially, like, these are all push to fit effectively, like these are not your full featured multiple weapon choice miniatures, obviously. So when I'm working on these sorts of minis, I will clip out one mini at a time, and that is then my focus. I'll get that miniature prepped, and then I will go ahead and do some assembly. Horn. I have some bad habits when it comes to miniatures. So, for instance, I will do a lot of clearing of the. Let's see this a little bit closer here. So when I'm clearing off some of the flash, I will just kind of use a little bit of an older, like this is, you can see this is my usual thing. The tip of this blade is missing. So this is an older knife. It's got a lot of marks on it, so I know it's an older blade, so I don't mind using it a little bit to scrape away some of the material. There are better tools and there are specific tools. Files aren't bad. I like files for a lot of things, but they can be a little bit harsh on plastic. Like when I'm dealing with a barrel end like that, it's fine. Like I can just sand that away. And I will jump between several tools for some of these things. But I have also become a fan, even though I haven't done a lot of modeling, I've done a little bit in the last year or so. So like for the shoulder pad, that's not even much of a thing. I like to use emery boards. So this is basically 120 grit on one side and 240 on the other. So this is the 240 side. This is the 120 side. This is really abrasive. This is less abrasive. The 240 side is awesome for some of the fine cleanup stuff. So one of the things that I'm going to have to get used to is the idea of not tucking this stuff basically under my nose while I'm working on it. It's probably better for me. I won't bunch up my shoulders and get all friggin' tight in like this. So I can share this with you on screen. I guess I could move this camera back a little bit to give you a better image. There we go. So I don't have to reach so far. I've got a bum shoulder from being rear-ended in several accidents over the last 5 years. So it still acts up, and that's good enough. I mean, these are not going on a tabletop, right? So I will not deny, I have multiple standards. Oh, and now that it's right in my face. I have lots of different standards for how I rate miniatures, for when I'm painting and the level of detail I'm going to go through to get them where I want them. I'm going to fix that for next stream. So for something like this, which is a board game effectively, I'm not going to worry overly much about being super meticulous on all of the flashing and everything. And to be fair, it's the same attitude that I take when I'm dealing with my rank and file. I'm just going to shovel this back a little bit because I don't want that in my face so much. So when I'm prepping, Marines, I have a full battle company of Dark Angels, all painted. Most of them even I went so far as to do, oh, that's a big ugly thing. I've gone so far as to hand paint the unit insignias, so assault squad markings, tactical squad markings on most of them. There's four tactical, two of the 6 tactical squads have their shoulder markings fully done. The rest have the markings, but not their squad numbers. And so what that also means is that each of those squads is actually made up of 16 Marines to account for all of the options. And yeah, it does mean that I can't jack one dude from one squad to another squad, and that's okay. I'm good with that. That's kind of how I like to roll. All right, so this one's ready for some glue now. But when I was painting them, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about. I just want them. They need to look good as a group, right? Like I need 100 of these guys to look good on the table. They don't have to be exquisite quality. I pick and choose when I'm gonna do that. When I get to painting these guys, I'll probably spend a bit more time, especially with the Blood Angels here, making sure that they have good paint. Like I'm not going to worry about filling like this seam here. If this was like actually a librarian model that I was planning on fielding, I would be little secret, because this is the plastic glue, because it'll melt it, you can just glue it in there like that, and that'll fix it a little bit. I'm not going to worry about filling that seam or sanding that flush. It's not critical in this model, and I wouldn't worry about it on the rank and file miniatures either. So how does this guy go? I'm not always good with some of these things. Okay, so that's kind of boring. These are not the most exciting miniatures, but there's a reason. Because I have not spent a lot of time with miniatures over the last years, 2 years probably. I really felt that doing something like this as my first 7-inch. Hey, look, this is the first one done. Doing this as my first project gets me back into it. Gets the juices flowing, as it were. Where is this? It actually cuts off there. And it kind of knocks the rust off my skills, because it's been a while. And I mean, I was never, Golden Demon quality, but I've won some painting competitions at the local level, and I've got a solid tabletop quality. I feel maybe it's not. Maybe it doesn't quite match what the current state of the game is. I definitely know that more and more people are trying to step up that game. Ooh. Super delicate little bit there. But that's where I like something like this emery board. It's a little more forgiving. And frankly, you can buy like a pack of like 20 of these for $5 on Amazon. Oh, that's got a little bit too much knobby. So yeah. Feels good to be back at this. I am building the Space Hulk game. So these are the Terminators from Space Hulk. I've got the Gene Stealers right here to go together. So, as I was saying, just kind of a little project to get me back into building, because I have not done much in a long time. And this, I'm pretty sure this is how this goes together. There we go. I'm going to Peter Venkman this a lot. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing, but not entirely sure. Am I in focus? There we go. Some positioning elements could definitely be improved. There we go. Second little miniature's done. Yeah, so I am kind of excited to get this going. All right, so they don't... Okay, there's 10. 10, 10, 10. And that is for dude number 6. This is not my favorite thing. I was really disappointed. I went through this. Honestly, like, I hadn't even opened the punch card stuff. Like, they were still all in cellar wrap. There you go. So Darkman's painting while I build. That's the point, right? Like, you join me, you hang out, you mock what I'm doing and say, geez, Jason, clearly it's been forever since you've done this. But yeah, really surprised that they did not have any instructions. I mean, these are push to fit models. They're pretty straightforward. But I would have expected ultimately an intro pack. Yep, that was a piece of plastic just flying across the room. Like that, they would have had a bit more instruction. Like, if you aren't familiar with 40K, I guess this was a limited edition thing. I don't know. I always felt that this could have been a really good gateway into the 40K universe. And they've definitely gotten better about doing those now. But it is this is a missed opportunity in my mind. This one's going to need a second clip. So often what I'll do when I'm looking at these pieces, oh, that's got a great bit of, this is some of the great models here. I don't know how well it shows up, but you can see if I rotate it this way, there we go. You can see there's this great little piece right here. It's like some gore coming off it, like he's just punched a Tyranid and it's got Tyranid gore coming off it, and a cut in the glove. I don't think that's from me, but we'll assume that that's not from me. But oh yeah, that is like really starting to bother me. I'm gonna have to fix that for next time. Anyway, this piece here, when I went to trim it, it's really, really close, and so trimming it off of the sprue, it was easier to trim it farther away and then do a second clip closer in. Okay, let's just... we're going to shuffle that in. Push that out a little bit. There we go. The problem is I set a bunch of this up, and I did not set... I was only setting up this afternoon after work. So... but yeah. No instructions. So... not a big deal for me. And it's not like you can just buy this anywhere right now. It was one of those limited edition things they did, like so many of their specialist games. I was expecting when they reprinted it, this is the second printing that they did, 2016, I think. Maybe a little bit later. I'm just going to plug my phone in here. Where's it? Cable. Oh, that's not it. So many cables. There's the cable. There we go. When they redid this, I was really expecting them to do more support. Maybe some additional missions, more Tyranids, anything like that. But they didn't. Because, that would have made too much sense for the fans of this. It's just going to go in there. And then we put the arm on. Yeah. The biggest issue that I have with these things is sometimes there's a specific order. Excuse me. Wow. Those pot stickers and rice are giving me some burps. Yeah. When I was assembling the Stormcast Eternals... this is one of those things where it's just... there we go. It shouldn't be hard. Like, when you're doing push to fit, it should not be a struggle. If it's a struggle, you're doing something wrong. And then I missed a bit to clean up, and that's okay. It's going to be largely covered by that flamer anyway, so who really cares? There we go. Alright, because this flamer's going to come in. And you're not... you'll still see it. It'll bother me. So... this is the point where I want it to be a bit more aggressive. If I can knock it down, I'm not overly concerned about how aggressive it is on the plate, just as long as I don't have a knobby bit there. That'll bother me down the way. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, I was assembling Stormcast Eternals from the first Warhammer Underworlds box, whatever that's called, Shadespire. And totally biffed it because I wasn't following the instructions. Because again, these push to fit models, super easy to go together, but it's also way easier to mess something up in such a way that you can't fix once you have assembled it. Because it's not like there's multiple pieces and it's harder to trim. You can. Model number 3 done. You can fix it. It's just more effort. And the whole point of push to fit is that it's not supposed to be a lot of effort. There we go. Okay. These are my favorite type of clippers. These used to be the standard GW clippers. Their new clippers are okay. Whatever you're doing, you need a good pair of clippers. I have been tempted to try and do a video on the value of the Gundam clippers out of Japan from a company. Can't remember what the company's called. They call them the God Hand clippers, but they are like $118. Like these are nice, or nice enough. They're like $15-20. It's like $100 premium. Like that's got to like just glide through. Like if I have to put any pressure on it, like at that point, it should be making me sushi. But from, professional model makers, they're like, yeah, they're the business, right? Like and I get it. Like if you're doing this for a living, you want something that is going to be ridiculously comfortable. And I mean, we've talked about it on the channel before. I'm a gadget guy. I love the gadgets and all of the little things. And do you really need them? No, you generally don't. You can get away without it. I mean, when I started this channel, the whole point was work with what I got because I have this lovely camera. But I've added, now I've got my mainstream deck, I've got a Go XLR, I've got a reasonable quality mic, I've got my Blue Yeti, which I'm still using for this because it's perfect and I need another mic over here. I've added a GoPro, a bunch of rigging lights. But I was starting with what I had. But the point is that when it comes to things like your model building and YouTube channels, you can do it without all of the bells and whistles. And I know it. And I've slowed down. Like there's still lots of things I would love to do, to add to the channel. I'd like to get a different camera. I'd like to add an additional camera. I've got an in-between step, a really good option that I'll be hopefully adding when I stream again. Oh my goodness. There we go. In 2 weeks, I'm going to have a camera kind of right here in front of me. So just that'll look this way. So we'll see how that works compared to the others. Yeah, most Gundam tools, I've heard the same thing. Because again, like Gundam's they're not just models in Japan. It's like a religion. Right? So, is this live? There's live. Okay. Sorry, I was just double checking this is the first time I'm streaming to YouTube and Twitch at the same time. So I'm trying to monitor multiple feeds, make sure everything's going well. So far so good. Everything's looking good. But yeah, the Gundam tools blowing away what other modelers or what we have otherwise is great, but I just don't know if the price premium's there, right? Or the value propositions there. Because frankly, like, I've been using this pair of $20 clippers for, I don't know, 15 years. Where did that come from? Here, 7. So, I mean, it would have to be like the difference. They have building competitions. Yeah, Connor could well have them. I need to turn off the sound on my phone. But yeah, it is a thing. I should actually check the stream and make sure that this stream it should be updated. But I'll check it after the fact. It's good enough. But yeah, the fancy tools for modeling, if you're not doing building competitions and you're just doing at-home modeling like I'm doing here, you don't need them. It's one of those things where it's like, if at some point this channel ever makes me a little bit of money, then I'll invest $120 in a pair of clippers to tell you whether or not it was worth it. But right now, while it's just a hobby that I'm doing for, I mean, that's all it's ever going to be, really, is a hobby. But if it's a hobby that pays me a bit of money at some point, I will happily reinvest it into that video. Because if it turns out to be awesome, great. But if it wasn't for this channel, I wouldn't buy the nippers, the little clippers or whatever. I've heard them called like snips, and that gets shortened down. I don't particularly care for that other term. But yeah, I know Adam Savage talks about how much he loves them over other clippers and stuff, but I mean, this is a dude who like worked for ILM, and while he always talks about not having TV money, and I get there's a substantial difference between, you know, having a solid YouTube presence and your Patreons and stuff. And he's got a crew of people. But there is a big difference between a tool you need for building miniatures for Star Wars and what I need for assembling Blood Angels for this. More than $500 Gundam kit, super high. Yes. Yeah, and that's ultimately where things like that, probably there's some value. This arm does not feel, it's like, this one's actually positionable. Where I could see that being useful, right? Like if you've got a really expensive, fancy kit, then yeah, maybe you do legitimately need, like if I look here, this is a good example. Having some super fine clippers when dealing with cutting near these lightning claws would be probably helpful. And if you're talking super fine parts, like here, I'm going to clip some, again, I'm going to do some wide clipping and then I'll bring the clipping in afterwards. But down here, I can clip like right to the base. And sometimes I'll like even kind of push in a little bit. I don't mind if I score the bottom of the miniature. But now I can clip that off. And again, because this is Space Hulk, I'm being a little sloppy with it. At some point, I'll do like a nice model. These are nice models. Ultimately, these are very nice models. And I'm doing them partly because it's not like I haven't painted Blood Angels before. I've got my Dark Angel army. I had a Grey Knight army that was pretty much painted that I sold. I sold a fully complete Warhammer Fantasy Battles Chaos army Warriors Chaos. Played them not because I like Chouse, but because they were broken AF. Like, seriously, when your frontline troops in a game like that are 2 wound models with strength 4 and the average strength is 3, 2 attacks, like... And it was an elite force, so there weren't a lot of models, which was part of what drew me to it as well. But yeah, full-on kit bash would be cool. But I've also got, you can't see it necessarily behind me, but I've got Master Lazarus, and I've got the limited edition Terminator Chaplain that GW did. So those are a couple of models where I'd spend a bit more time on it. I've done a bunch of orc stuff. That would be a fun kit bash. One of my favorite builds. Favorite builds I ever did. In the days when there wasn't even a Forge World option, my buddy Kurt and I raided our bits boxes, and he turned at work a core structure, and we built a Stompa, an orc Stompa. And from our bits boxes, which represented at that point probably, I mean, this is going to be 2006-ish, 2005. So at this point, I've been playing 40K. At that point, I'm playing 40K about 10 years. And so the two of us have been playing 10 years, 40K. So we've got 10 years worth of bits, and we never threw anything out. And we had bought a bunch of City Fight, the official City Fight terrain, and we had bits from that. And we literally built a Stompa, 14 inches tall, and we didn't duplicate a single bit on it. Every piece on that Stompa was unique. We had Tamiya tank kits that we rated. Some, like a railway cannon, Big Bertha railway cannon. This is not on there properly. Whatever. Yeah, it was awesome. I think it's still sitting at Kurt's place. But it was just one of those, hey, let's do this. Let's build this thing. And it was great because we just sat there and worked together on this model, and then painted it with my airbrush, and it was awesome. It was just a great experience. Excuse me. But kit bashing is a hoot. I do less of it when I'm working on, like, Space Marine armies, because I tend to feel that, even those legions chapters that maybe don't adhere tightly to the Codex Astartes from Rowboat Gilliman there, there's... They don't muck with their machines much, right? You've got never mind the fact that the Mechanicum would lose their beans if they caught the Space Marines customizing their stuff too much. But they just don't have the knowledge, right? Like, one of the great fascinations for me in 40K is this concept that humanity has evolved and advanced so much, but in doing so has lost so much, right? Like, they've forged an empire across the galaxy, but they don't remember how to make the things that they don't remember how to create new things, right? Like, and that concept from the organization that controls everything, the Mechanicum, actually outlaw the idea of creating new things. Like, if it wasn't something, if you didn't discover technology, if you didn't discover a way to make a thing. So, like, I oh, hey, look, I found a way to make a Gauss rifle, let's say. Like they don't really have a magnetic propelled railgun type weapon that is man portable. So if someone, without having found the technology to create such a thing, invented it, like they just applied their knowledge of physics to it, they would actually be deemed a heretic. Like, how crazy is that? And then I look at, people not wanting to believe in how bad COVID can be, and then it's not such a big stretch. But I've read a lot of the Horus Heresy novels, and one of my favorite ones is the Prospero Burns. Yes, Prospero Burns, with the following the Vilka Fenrika, the Space Wolves, as they march on the homeworld of the Thousand Suns. And with them is a fellow by the name of Caspar Ansbach Hauser. And he is a conservator, archaeologist, effectively. Glorified librarian to some extent. And one of his driving questions was, like, it's not just enough that during the Age of Strife, Old Night, whatever you want to call it, that humanity was cut off from each other, but they lost knowledge. But not just, they don't even know what they lost, right? Like, what did we lose? We know, like, there's no record of what was there before to tell them what was lost. And that's where I think it's really important for us to maintain these sorts of records today, because it's like, that would be more than mildly terrifying. Number 4. Boom. Boom. Do some wide clips on these ones. That's number 4. Here's number 4. Storm Shield and Thunderhammer. So yeah, I think it's funny about the 40k universe that there's so much they've lost. And I mean, I let myself get goated about the Dark Angels, because they are one of the most loyal legions. During the Heresy, I would argue that the Alpha Legion is also exceptionally loyal to humanity and to the universe, if not the Emperor, but not the Imperium per se. Or something like that. I don't disagree with the decisions they make. Let's put it that way. I think that they made reasonable decisions with the information they had, that they were provided with. Oops. This is also an old knife. And we talked about the fact that this blade is not super sharp. I should really swap to this one, which is a newer blade. Yeah. I'm far more likely to cut myself with this one. That's not foreshadowing at all. What is this? Is Flash. Thunder. Custodes. Ah, yes. The Custodes. They are, in lore, again, just an amazing thing. Although, really, they sat on their hinds for 10,000 years while the Emperor rotted in the Golden Throne. They could have been out there helping with things. But there were only ever 10,000 of them. like the Thousand Sons, who were named that because at the point which the Legion was saved, there were but 1,000 of them. Well, they weren't so named. They were named that beforehand, but at the point where Magnus took over, there were only 1,000 left. But the Custodes were all like the Primarchs, more or less. Each one was a product of unique artifice, though not as extreme as the Primarchs. The Custodes are the best of the best of the best, with honors, sir, of the Space Marines, to some extent. All right. Is this all cleaned up? Normally, you know what? I'll find a little bit better light. There we go. Lighting is very important. I wasn't as worried about it for this with the building, but when we get to the painting stuff in 2 weeks, lighting is very important. I won't want to be fighting with it. I also not want to be fighting with this stuff, so I'll figure out a better setup in the meantime. It's a lovely part about having 2 weeks. I can figure what I'm going to fix out between some of these. But yes, the Custodes, each a product of unique artifice, each one almost the equal to a Primarch in physical attributes, but without the additional unique gifts that made the Primarch special. So for instance, we know that... Oh, what the heck? You know that Jason should test fit things. There we go. Haha. The Primarch Lemon Russ was has some canine DNA in his genetic makeup, and it's probably some sort of wolf DNA. And that each of the Primarchs has gifts from their father, from the Emperor. So Sanguinius has the gift of foresight. He's psychic. And those are things that were not passed on to the Custodes. They are simply the best physical specimens. They have the Emperor's or the Primarch's physical attributes, but not the additional modifications that went into each of the Primarch DNAs. So Mortarian's health, we'll call it. His ability to resist poisons. They don't have necessarily the tactical acumen of Johnson or Horace, or the statesman abilities of... Oh, that is like weird. Like this giant chunk of flash. I don't know if that's deliberate or just really weird bad casting. The tactical acumen of someone like Reboot Gilliman. But they're swanky. They are pure with no way to be corrupted. That's why they can't use magic. They are not psychers. That is correct. And absolutely, the Emperor foresaw an Imperium without... Oh, those top pieces. Foresaw an Imperium without the need for psychers. Not that it would never have psychers, but that he was intending to guide... And this is where the Emperor's hubris comes in. He was intending to guide humanity's evolution into the psychic realm to ensure that they did not fall to chaos, because he felt that he had the knowledge and the power to do so. Yeah, that's some stones on a fella to think that. It's one of those things, like, it's all for the good, the betterment of humanity, to prevent, and ultimately to defeat chaos. Like, that was part of it. It's like, it's not just doing that. But his goal was to eventually, this is the bad part, he would have purged all the psychic mutations out of humanity. He would have just removed it, and that would have been through the extinction of psychers, the slaughter, genocide of psychers, which not cool. More than not cool, actually. But that was the Emperor's plan. And then he would, through his own psychic might, his own immense psychic power and potential, guide the mutation of psychic power within humanity so that it was done safely. The Emperor is a jerk. And for the record, there are no good sides in 40K. 40K is a world where everyone is just at least a little bit evil. The only ones that I would say probably aren't actually evil, doesn't mean they're not a menace. Tyranids. Don't believe they are sentient enough at the individual level. It's like saying ants are evil. They're not. They have their instinct and they're doing their thing. Come on. Where is that? There we go. The Tau are probably the lesser of the evils. I mean, they're like everything for the greater good, which is cool. They're like space socialists. But again, not necessarily following through with what I would consider to be the best way to get what you are after. Best way to achieve that goal. Yeah. I mean, chaos is evil. That's for sure. Orcs. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to put orcs in the evil camp. I mean, I know this was a question that actually was raised on Play on Tabletop recently, talking about the factions. Great channel. Check it out if you haven't. Engine number 11. And you know, some people are like, no, you know, they're not much different than Tyranids as far as evil goes. But I'm like, no, you know, like they've got some psychic potential that's definitely affected, and they're definitely negatively impacted by proximity to the warp. But at the end of the day, we know that their leadership caste can form enough cognitive processing to negotiate amongst tribes. The different clans of orcs can work together. They don't like to, but they can. And that tells me they've got at least enough rudimentary sentience, or enough sentience at any rate, that they can, like, they've got a clear caste society. And even though it is entirely based on size, like literally the bigger you are, the higher, it's like Invader Zim, right? Like the almighty tallest. But they have a class and society structure that is not simply based on a hive mind. They do have some mob mentality rules, or mob mentality rolling with them. So, you know, so I'm not willing to give I don't give orcs a pass just because they're ruled by mob mentality. In fact, the fact that they can have mob mentality is like, no pass. No mas. These really are nice models, right? Like, even for push to fit, like quick assembly, and like I've talked about, like the dude with the blood splatter, or like seriously holding a Tyranid skull. Like, how freaking cool is that? All right, one more Terminator. But yeah, the 40K as a world is super rich in its settings. There's lots of books. If you aren't a big reader or don't have time to read because you're really busy, a lot of the Horus Heresy stuff, most of it, if not all of it, is available through Audible, which is how I ingest most of it these days. I mean, I've read several of the books, obviously old school because I enjoy reading, but I also, especially when I was traveling for work a lot. All right, now I've like possibly cut up multiple parts. This is one dude, 12, 12, 12. Okay, there's 2 left. I've ingested multiple books that way. I am re-listening to the whole thing right now. And I mean, I'm not sponsored by Audible. Audible, if you're listening, I dig a sponsorship, but I mean, I've got 48 subscribers on YouTube, so it may not be worth your time. Yeah. But someday, it's an early investment. Like seriously, I will plug you for just an annual membership. Waive my membership fees. But the books are, most of the narrators are really good with them. They're about 16-ish. Probably the average is about 12 hours long. Some of them are shorter, some are longer, like any book. But there's a really rich tapestry to tap into, and over 50 books, right? So like 4 years of membership, and at like whatever, $15 a month for Audible. For like, that's a book a month. And to buy the audiobooks, which I bought a lot of them from Black Library directly and have reobtained them through Audible just for simplicity of centralizing my library, because it wasn't an option when I first started listening to the audiobooks. Wow, those are like some really big bangles. Like, look at that. Like, seriously, this dude's got like giant fracking earrings, it looks like. Like, wow. Disco plate much? Anyway, Audible, great way to listen to your 40K novels. Most cost-effective way to legally listen. I mean, I get it that there's pirates out there. I do not condone nor endorse that model. Have I participated in it? Absolutely, I have participated in that sort of thing in my misbegotten youth. But I do not believe in it, and I have stopped doing that sort of shenanigans. Because it's important for artists to get what they is owed. I mean, I have no idea how much Dan Abnett makes doing a novel for 40K. I wouldn't be surprised if his contract is he gets paid a fixed fee and then GW takes all the royalties. That would totally be... I could see GW doing that. But I want to make sure that regardless of what it is, the artist is getting their due. So I do the thing. My misbegotten youth as far as piracy is largely software piracy in the teenage years, in the 90s, like before the internets. When software piracy meant that you met up with your friends and you shared your game discs. Because I did not have the money to join the piracy BBSs. Don't get me wrong, I knew where they were. Kind of got myself in hot water with one of their high overlords. Because he went to my high school. It's one of those funny things. You know, in the lower mainland realm of the underground of bulletin board systems in the 90s. One of the most notorious individuals in the area who, I mean, notorious from a software pirate standpoint. Like, let's be clear here. It's not like he was like legitimately gangster or anything, but went by the moniker of Lord IBM. And was, a couple years older than me in high school. The most intimidating thing about the fellow, whose real name I bloody well don't really care to remember, was that he was a black belt in karate. So I was like, oh, yeah. So, like, legitimately, the person most capable of kicking my ass in high school was the one that I pissed off by when a new bulletin board that I knew was opened up. I logged in, and I did not have my own handle, per se, at the time. Now I've got many, many names. So I decided to log in as Lord IBM. And funny thing, too, I mean, not really surprising, but he must have only been, he was about 2 years older than me. But anyway, he was also the TA in my computers class. So at the end of, like, when my grade 9 or whatever computer class let out, at the end of the day, he's like, Jason, can you hold up for a second? I'm like, sure, what's up? And he sits down and has that, like, that serious look. And I'm like, whatever, 15, 14. And, like, I had no idea how the world really worked. Still don't, to be completely blunt. Anyway, he sits me down. He says, kind of gives me one of those, you know what you did talks, and don't you dare do it again. And I expect that by 5 o'clock today, I can register Lord IBM in that BBS. So, of course, I gave it up. I let him have it. Because, like, I didn't need him mucking with my GPA. I wasn't really worried about him hitting me. But he had a rep that he was worried about maintaining. Whoops. And that was his concern. Because in that shadowy realm of the early days of internet piracy, he needed to maintain his brand integrity, as it were. It's funny, thinking about that. And realistically, like, what was the most of it? Like, trying to get, like, the latest Space Quest game, which I'd wind up buying anyway. Like, that was the craziest thing. All right, so this is another one of those cool things. Like, it's just this cool marker piece in the game. I'm not going to do all the tier nerds tonight. I mean, I recognize nerds bullying nerds. Yeah, right? I mean, it was one of those things where, like, he and I, we never would hang out, but, like, he got me, and at the end of it, he gave me, like, that how dare you speech, but then he also, like, totally hooked me up with access, right, to one of the wares boards, because he felt bad about bullying this little nerd who didn't know what the hell he was doing, and that's what he really recognized. It's just funny, those funny stories. High school, you were so long ago. But yeah, I remember, like, one of the first kind of pseudo trade shows that I went to was when Shaw was releasing their internet, their ADSL internet, and my folks dropped me off to it so I could register. I didn't have the Shaw account, but they let me sign up their Shaw account for the fancy internets, because at the end of the day, I was paying for it. Like, I had a paper route, so I could pay for the fancy internets, because it was whatever, like $12 a month. Something ridiculously cheap like that. Of course, like, you weren't worried about, like, you were dialing up. Like, this is, you know, I had a 5600 baud modem, baby. It was rocking. That great meme about, you know, back in our day, we had to slaughter a robot to log into the internets. All right, so this is where I cut that piece from there. Where is the labels? It's this one. I'm going to say it's that one. And then we have to figure out the rest of the arms on that one. So I think I'm going to finish up this Tyranid, and then that's probably it. As I said earlier, my shoulder is yelling at me. I took some painkillers. I'm going to be going to my massage therapist tomorrow. The wee hours of the morning. Before work. Yeah. Okay, so my current hypothesis is that this goes in here. Like that. Okay, so that's good. Now we need the arms. So we got 2 arms. That's not... No, that's not his. Are his arms even on here? This is where I really wish they had instructions. There's one of his arms, I think. We're going to make the assumption that this is an arm for him. Clip it off and do a test fit. It seems like it's plausible. There we go. Yeah, that's the right one. So now we need to find the other arm. Or arms. Is it these two? I feel like it's those two. Yeah, those are separate ones. Look at that, falling apart. So let's just double check this. And this. And then the next paint night, we will be painting the Terminators, including the marker dude, because they're all going to be red. And then I'll do all the Tyranids in subsequent... I'm not. Let's be clear. I'm not going to get them all done in one night. Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be right. Okay, sweet. All right, let's double check that all the seams and everything are cleaned up. So, once I get Space Hulk done, which will be a couple of... I mean, it's going to be a couple of months, right? Like, because let's be clear, one of the reasons I'm doing this is to actually get my hobbying going, because I'm not doing lots. I'll get the rest of these assembled before the next session and get them all primed. That'll be the trickiest part. Although it looks like we're going to have nice weather possibly next weekend. So not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, which is the weekend before the next session, because it's every 2 weeks at 8 o'clock. Yeah. So I'll get these primed before the next session. Them all built. And then we will paint ourselves some Blood Angels. Blood Angels. Probably with a mix of contrast. Yeah, I'll use a bunch of techniques. I'm a believer when it comes to painting that, like so many other things, like Like, frankly, learn all of the skills. Whenever you have the opportunity to learn a new skill, you should take it. And even if it's not something you use all the time, if you learn for your hobbies, for your job, whatever, if you learn a skill and you learn how it works and how to apply it, then even if you never do that very specific thing, you will still have gained enough knowledge that you can apply it at some point. And a story that I often talk about when I was still teaching fencing things to people, and why it's important to learn even techniques that you don't think will work or that you don't think will work for you, is because you never know when you might not actually need it. So I went to an event in the SCA called Sport of Kings, and I attended a whole bunch of classes. And in between classes, because you could, if I didn't have something booked, I went and just watched what was happening at the other classes. I'd, check with the instructors. Okay, if I just kind of hang out for a little bit and check out what's happening, and everyone always said yes. And I watched and learned a technique that I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I don't think it, like, it's not how I'm going to, it's not how I fight. And that's what this was about. This was about medieval combat. Like, that's just not how I do it. It doesn't make sense. Why would I spend time learning that technique? But I watched it enough so I could learn it and thought, what, I'm just going to pocket it away, because someday I might fight someone who's using this technique, and it'll be good to know what they're doing. So about a year later, I'm at an event and I'm fighting someone who's better than me. He's a much better fighter than I am. And the way he fights, he's really tough for me to beat. But I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to try that thing that I saw and learned a year ago and see if it applies. It's not something I'd done. I hadn't practiced it since, but I'd committed the idea and the concepts enough to memory that I could very rapidly apply it in that situation. And I won the fight because I combined a couple different things. And I won't get into the nitty-gritty details, but the fact of the matter is that learn what you can, even if it's not directly applicable to what you do, and learn it with earnesty. Learn it with the intent to use it, even if you don't think you will, because there's going to be a time when it's going to be valuable. And if you're watching the stream, you're watching my face up here, right here. Here's my face, and my hands are down here, and you're kind of getting that weird thing. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. I hope to see you again in 2 weeks, which will be whatever. Today's the 13th, so the 27th. Yeah. So you can watch it either on YouTube or on Twitch, streaming to both simultaneously. Kind of a weird thing. I'm going to try to get the chatting better so I can see what's going on. Now that I think of it, I've got my work computer like literally right in front of me. I should just put the chat up there and I can watch it there. But thanks for coming out. As always, I want you to remember to work your wonk, whether it's painting miniatures like Darkman is, building miniatures like I'm doing right now. Don't bully other nerds. But work your wonk, wash your hands, stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out there. And yeah, why don't you just go ahead and